Hello, guys. Welcome to the report. A timetable and an update on where we are in the crisis. It's just starting to begin. First off, soon, when the markets hit 20,000 on the Dow Jones, I expect capital to start moving around like a wrecking ball, swinging around this way and that way. Capital start flying this way and that way, searching for a home. The thing about it is there is still a lot of money out there, but it's being held on account. It's being held. It's locked. The money's locked. The money's going to start to free itself up. Capital's going to start moving when the crisis really gets underway. Not only the capital is coming out of these markets, but it's going to start to try to find a home, a safe haven. Now, the real fear and panic is not going to hit until the stock market goes below 20,000. I'm going to give you an update right now and tell you pretty much what I'm expecting, but I want to give you a disclaimer first. None of what I'm going to tell you right now is to be used for financial advice. It's not financial advice. This program is solely for, well, like maybe entertainment or whatever you can use it for, but not for financial advice. Here's what we got, a situation. Going back about maybe even a year ago or whatever, I was saying that when the Dow drops below 20,000, that's when the real fear and panic's going to set in. And what I said was that they're going to shift to 3 asset classes. Now, right now, let's start the charts right here and take a look at what they're doing. Right now, they've been flooding into Treasury bonds. They're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. They saw this coming, some of them, and they're just like rats jumping off of a sinking ship. They're trying to find someplace safe. So Treasury bonds, to them, in their minds, Treasury bonds are what they consider the safest safe haven asset, to where they can put their money and they consider it to be safe. So they've been buying these things pretty heavy, these debt instruments. But you have to understand something. These Treasury bonds have a tremendous, tremendous counterparty risk. And I know that counterparty risk has not been present throughout history, because the United States government has been a solid entity by which you can put your faith in to deliver your money, basically. And so, over the years, these have taken on a significance of being a safe haven asset, because the United States government has never faltered. They always pay. And the United States dollar has been one of the most it is the powerful currency going all the way back to Rome. So, they've been piling in. What they don't realize is the United States is broke. And there's only 2 ways out. One way out is to default. That means all these Treasury bonds would be absolutely worthless. 100% loss. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They're always going to honor these Treasury bonds. There's only one problem is, they're going to be honoring them with dollars that are not worth 1/10 of what the dollar's worth today. So, there you have it. Okay? They want to make yield. It's all about yield. Yield, 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 yield. What's the sense of making yield? 1,000 times 0 is still 0. So if the dollar's worth practically 0, your yield is worth nothing. At a certain point, when the stock market goes below 20,000 on the Dow, they're going to start to realize the real safe haven asset, gold. Okay? Gold is going to it's going to be the first one that they run to after these Treasury bonds and stuff, after they're done having fun with these, trying to find a safe haven. It's going to suddenly dawn on them, hey, you know what? They're going to start emptying out, and like I say, the capital's going to be moving like a crazy swinging wrecking ball. It's going to start to move toward gold and silver at first. What's going to happen, I think, then is I think the stock market's going to continue to tumble. When it hits around, I'm thinking around 18,000, I think that's the point you're going to see the Fed react. And in a big way. I think they'll probably react before then, but how they'll react is they're going to say no more interest rate cuts. And they're going to hope that that's going to do it and the market's going to go back up. Well, it might for a few days. But ultimately, I think the market will start to slide again. You know? And in fact, what they're doing is they're protecting their most beloved thing that the Fed's doing, that they love the most, which is quantitative tightening. They're protecting that. They don't want to stop that program of $50 billion a month that they're destroying the money out of the economy. They want to continue that so that they can level out their balance sheet. They're going to try to sneak that through. They're just like a bad kid standing there, and the mother says, "What are you hiding?" And the kid's got cookies behind his back. That's his precious. He doesn't want, that's what he really doesn't want to give her, is those cookies. And that's the Fed. Their cookies is the quantitative tightening, the $50 billion a month. They don't want to relent on that. It's going to take an awful lot to make them relent. I'm thinking they're going to relent when the stock market hits 18,000. I'm just throwing out a rough number there. I might be wrong. They might relent sooner, or they might take more. Pray it doesn't have to go down to 14,000 or 12,000 before they finally relent and say, okay, we're turning things around. The Fed has the power to turn everything around on all these markets anytime they want. But there's only one catch. As soon as they turn everything around, it's going to be the demise of the dollar. That's the catch. That's the big catch. Okay? It's that demise of the dollar where we're going to see the huge upswings in 3 asset classes then. I'm thinking when the stock market hits 20,000, that the first asset class that's going to start to receive a benefit from all this is gold. And silver too. Gold and silver. But I don't think Bitcoin is going to receive the benefit quite yet. In fact, I think it could actually work against Bitcoin when the stock market hits 20,000. I think it could be bad for Bitcoin. It could be very bad for Bitcoin. Because it's going to be a deflation. And people, like I say, it could be very bad for Bitcoin, or it could be very good for Bitcoin. I'm just not exactly sure yet, but I'm thinking probably be bad. Here's the thing. Bitcoin is going to become a beneficiary of all of this crash at a certain juncture. And I believe that juncture is going to be when the Fed turns around and changes monetary policy. So we're looking at probably maybe an 18,000 on the Dow. Dow goes down to 18,000. The Fed comes out with a very dovish monetary policy. We're going back to quantitative easing. And oh, by the way, we're going to double the amount we had before. 80 billion before, now it's 160 billion a month. Quantitative easing. And oh, by the way, we're going to instate some new programs, social programs, guaranteed income for all Americans and so on. Tax rebates for everybody, whatever they have to do. And they might even say exactly the same words that Mario Draghi said when he instituted quantitative easing over in the European Union. He said, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. And that's what they're going to do. They'll do whatever it takes. As soon as they do that, the sky's the limit for gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies. The sky is the limit. And say goodbye to the precious dollar. The thing is when that happens too, don't expect the dollar to fall immediately overnight. Let's take a look at a few more of these markets and see what's going on. Let's take a look at the Dow right now. She's down 414 points. She's basically in free fall right now. Free fall mode, because this is accumulative. It's adding to all the other days she's fell. She's down 414 points, 1.81% today alone. Let's go down and take a look at the. We're looking at the 1 year. No, let's take a look at the 1 year. Here's the 1 year chart, and what we see is it's diving so quick today that the chart's not even keeping up. I mean, it's diving down into where you can't see it. It's going down below the chart. They're going to have to redo this chart. It's diving down so quick today. The market's still open. It'll be closed in a little while. Let's take a look at cryptocurrency, what it's doing today. It's fallen too with the market right now. It's starting to fall a little bit. It's not falling that much, though. It's not falling that quick because cryptocurrency is a safe haven asset. It's going to become a safe haven asset. Right now, it's still speculative, but it's on its way. And it's going to be a tremendous safe haven asset when it gets there. Let's take a look at gold and silver here. We're going to take a look at silver. See, they haven't realized yet. There's no real large amount of fear yet into these markets. They're starting to get a little bit scared, but it hasn't really got to the point yet where there's a lot of fear out there. Okay? The markets haven't fell far enough yet. Like I say, they got to cross that threshold of 20,000 before the real fear starts to set in. I'm talking about fear where people actually feel like, I mean, their knees start to knock. I mean, they start to get a cold sweat, and they feel like they're going to have a panic attack kind of fear. That's the kind of fear that's going to start to grip people. And when that kind of fear starts to hit, and this becomes a big story in the news, right now it's nothing. They're not even talking about it. Americans don't even know what's going on, half of them. I mean, you guys that tune into my channel know what's going on. You know this is a news story, but it's going to become an awful lot bigger news story really fast at a certain point. You know? I don't really see any sort of recovery coming. Who wants to catch a falling knife right now in this stock market? I mean, these guys, these market traders now today, they must be starting to get kind of scared, you know? Let me see. Let me update this page. There's 414 points down so far today. But this is now to the point where I'm starting to say, hey, you know what? This is more than just a little correction. This could be the big one starting. And when I say starting, I mean just that. I mean the initial phases. 22,445. 414 points down just today alone. We could have a real black day coming up, you know, a day where stock market drops more than 1,000 points coming up really soon. We might not get through Christmas without an actual stock market crash, because we're well on our way to getting something going here. I'm not going to I'm a little bit tentative about calling it a crash just yet, because you got your plunge protection team out there, you got your boys out there that can try to prop this thing up yet, and they might come into the rescue yet to try to get us through Christmas or whatever, you know. They did. Listen, believe me, I mean, to a lot of people out there, that sounds kind of ridiculous. They don't believe that the plunge protection team actually does that sort of thing. Do your homework. Go back and study the Great Depression, study the stock market crash in 1929, and you'll find that they did come into the rescue, and they poured good money after bad to try to stop it and plug the hole, and plug the leak. They poured in, back in those days, money was different than it is today. Today it would require many, many billions of dollars, but back then they put in hundreds of millions. And it did. It stopped the crash for I think, a day or 2 or 3 days. And then as soon as that money ran out, the crash continued worse than ever, unabated. They couldn't stop it. It was a runaway train. That's what might happen this time. They might come into the rescue and rescue us through Christmas and into the New Year's, but then it's just going to continue to crash again. If it's set up to crash, you know. Everything's overvalued. Everything's overpriced. And, oh, okay, it's at close. It's 414 points today at close. It closed at 4:13 p.m. Anyway, that's what's going on with that. Now, you know, your silver and your gold. If you're sitting on some physical silver and gold, don't sell at these prices. And I would say if you've bought Bitcoin and stuff, even if you bought up at $20,000, I think you should HODL the stuff, because I'm going to tell you why. Is if you sell right now or whatever, you're going to incur your loss if you pay $20,000 a coin for the stuff. But if you hold it and it goes back up, well, then you don't. It's just like it never happened. It's just like these lows never happened. You just hold it right through the whole thing, you know. Anyway, that's what's going on, and I'm kind of expecting, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of expecting going into the new year that the bond yields, they're going to start to come out of these bond yields a little bit, and these yields are going to start to go up again on the U.S. Treasuries. We're in for quite a ride, guys. I'm a little bit excited about this. I thought that this was going to be starting sooner. I thought it was going to be starting midsummer. Made it right through the summer. We made it right through the fall and into winter. I'm surprised, but the reason was there was so much excess liquidity in the system. It took that long for the Fed to burn it up at $50 billion a month, sucking that from the liquidity. Sucking that liquidity from the system. I do not think that this crash is over. I think that this is going to accelerate. I think it's got a long way to go yet, to tell you the truth. It could have a few little upswings in the meantime, you know. But I'm a little bit at loss for words, guys, to tell you the truth. And now that it's really starting, I would say to don't panic or anything. It's not the end of the world. It's a situation that we're just going to have to deal with day to day and take this thing as it comes. This is what I set this channel up for. That's why I named it Financial Turmoil Explained. Do my best to try to keep you guys up to date on this crisis as it unfolds. And try to see what's the best way to actually get out and divest yourself from the dollar that's going to actually, in the end, go down. I know in the initial stages of this crisis, it seems kind of counterintuitive, the fact that the dollar is actually maintaining its value better than most anything else. And it seems like the best place to be is in dollars, you know. But ultimately, the dollar's heading toward a cliff. And that cliff is when the Fed has to change monetary policy. And they're going to be forced to. In fact, right now, you can just bet your bottom dollar inside the Fed headquarters. They're running around in there, and they are, like, excited with nervous energy. And they're upset, and they don't really know what to do about this. This situation is kind of forcing their hand. And they know, ultimately, that they do have control over this. They do have control over deflation. They don't have any control over inflation. They have control over deflation. This is deflation. They have control over this. They can let this go a long time and get really severe before they react, or they could react sooner, but they can control it either way. There's endless amounts of money that they can print. There's no limit to how much money that they can print, and that's how you control this. You control this by, this is just exactly like a fire. And how this fire is put out is with money. So it's just like a fire. The longer you let the fire spread and the bigger the fire gets, the more money it's going to take to put it out. Right now, this is just like a fire burning, but it's not a real big fire. It hasn't spread that much yet. It hasn't burnt the whole house down yet. It's just getting going. That's what it's like. It's like a fire. And so they can throw the money on it to cool it down right now. They can put it out. Or they can wait until it spreads all everywhere, and then it's going to take a lot more money. Either way, as soon as they turn this around, the dollar starts to die. Now, once the dollar starts to die, and once the dollar starts to lose value, goes down from the 90s into the 80s or whatever, and starts to lose value, the dollar's already been undermined over in the East. Yuan futures oils contracts, we're looking at even the SWIFT system itself is being undermined. The whole way money's transferred is being undermined. Oil for dollars is being undermined. The petrodollar is being undermined. It's been being undermined for years now. The Chinese positively hate the dollar. And they've been doing everything in their power to try to destroy the dollar. The Fed has been working very hard, feverishly, for years to try to support the dollar. But the Fed's getting caught into a corner now, where they can't move left and they can't move right. And they're being forced to move. They're going to have to make their... It's exactly like a game of chess, you know? I mean, the king's cornered, and he's got two moves. He can move this way or this way, and he's got two queens in front of him. And he's like, it's like check. That's the Fed right now. They're in check, right? If they move here, it's going to be checkmate. So they're hesitating their move. They're just like somebody playing chess, and they're sitting there and they're stalling. You know you got them in checkmate. It's stalling. That's what they're doing. They're buying time. They're stalling. Same thing Germany's doing with the Deutsche Bank right now, with this whole big thing about they're going to merge it with the other bank. And those two banks both are failing. So you merge them together, and you might get another 6 months out of it. You might squeeze 6 months out of it. But then when it finally crashes, you're going to have two big banks crashing simultaneously. Bigger crisis than you have now. And it's the same way with the Fed. The longer they let this go, the longer they stall, the more money it's going to take to stop this deflation. It's a terrible situation that we're in right now. It's only going to be resolved with a crisis. And suffice to say, the crisis is going to be in the dollar, ultimately, in the end. It's going to be a dollar crisis, a sovereign dollar crisis. And the U.S. dollar is going to lose its world reserve status. And this is going to affect each and every American. It's going to bring poverty to America. What we're going to see is we're not going to see a Mad Max world. I really don't think so. Okay, I shouldn't say that for absolute certainty. But I don't think we're going to see a Mad Max world. What I think we're going to see instead is an expansion of all of these homeless people and stuff. Right now, they go out on the street or whatever, and they're homeless, and the police come along and constantly harass them. You can't stay here. You got to get up off of that park bench and move down the road. And they get down the road, and the police say, no, you're going to have to move again. You can't stay here. You can't stay here. It's always, you can't stay here. You know, you can't sit. They won't let them sit. They keep them standing all the time. I mean, what kind of a life is that? You know? They're just poor people who've lost their home. Now, here's the thing. In this crisis, the people that have lost their homes are going to 10 times in number. And in fact, these cops that have been pushing them, I mean, that's just justice, isn't it? Isn't that just total justice? Some of these cops that have been pushing these guys around for years, you can't stay here. You got to get up off that pavement. You got to stand up. You can't sit down, and we're going to arrest you for vagrancy and all this kind of garbage. And they've been molesting these people for years. This is real justice, because some of those cops are going to end up homeless and on the street. And they're going to learn what it's like to be a homeless person, because that's what this crisis is going to do. You know, you better darn well have assets that are de-dollarized assets. You better be in there with it. Otherwise, you could end up homeless. And it's no fun. But there's going to be homeless cities that are going to spring up from this crisis. And they're going to be pretty large. The same thing happened back in the 1930s, you know. They had Hooverville, you know. And they had these big cities, and they're whole big cities, and they're just whatever people can find. They grab pieces of plywood. They grab old tents, canvases. They grab poles or whatever, and they actually make themselves a home right on the ground with no foundation on it. They go inside and they sweep the ground to try to keep it clean. They put blankets down inside, and it's generally lit with some sort of a lantern or whatever, right? And it's cold in the winter, and it's hot in the summer, but it keeps the rain off of them. It keeps them alive. And this is what actually you might see these springing up all across America in almost every major city when this crisis actually gets underway. And these people are going to be looking for support, and the support is going to have to come from the federal government and a universal basic income. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be hard, because they're going to make it so that you have to apply for that. You have to have a residence. It's exactly what they're going to do. you know? And it's going to be like a catch-22. You're living in a homeless city, and you want the basic income, and you're not going to be able to get it, to get yourself up, to get out of that situation. And they're just not going to care. The government's just not going to care because there's going to be so many people in that situation. You know, this is going to be an unparalleled crisis. It's going to be similar to the Great Depression, and the people that actually have to go through this crisis, it's going to make, well, after they come through the other side, it's going to make an impression on them that they have, that they carry for the rest of their lives. What they become is they become stingy. They become hoarders. Once they get through this crisis and they're able to have something again, they save everything. They'll save every container that comes from the store. They'll clean it out and put it away in the cupboard. You know, every little thing that they can save and scrimp, they'll try to scrimp on food. They'll be that way for the rest of their life because that's what this crisis will do to this next generation. That's how bad it's going to be. And this is really serious. What's happening is really serious. It's nothing to panic about. I don't think we're going to go into a Mad Max world. I really don't. I think that the powers that be are going to distribute enough income around after they're forced to distribute it around. They're not, this time they do quantitative easing. They're also going to do something called helicopter money, along with quantitative easing. So they are going to distribute income around. But the problem with that is that increases the speed that the dollar is going to lose value. So ultimately what we're talking about in the final stages of this is actually what's called a hyperinflation or a crack-up boom. That's the final stages of this. That's what we're headed towards. And in the final stages of this crack-up boom, you're going to watch the dollar go down so low in value that in the end, that the government's going to be forced to release the cryptographic version of the dollar that's going to have a higher value. So they're basically going to do a reset. And this reset's going to involve them coming out and saying, hey, you know what, we're changing over to a new cryptographic currency that's backed by gold. Everybody's going to say, well, where's the gold? They're going to say, in Fort Knox. People are going to say, show us. And they're going to say, no, we're not showing it to you, but we got 8,000 tons. Blah, blah, blah. Steve Mnuchin saw it. You know, the Treasury Secretary saw it. He can affirm that we have 8,000 tons. Or they might say we got the gold, the Grand Canyon gold, or whatever, you know. But at any rate, they're going to actually go over and they're going to say that the new cryptographic currency is backed by gold. You know, and so then they're going to make it pricey. When it first comes out, it'll be very pricey, and they'll force you to buy it while it's pricey. So you got your money in the bank, right? They'll say, okay, you got $10,000 in the bank. We'll give you so many units of these new cryptographic currency. And all's well and fine because it'll have good spending power when it first comes out. But basically, it's just going to be an altcoin. It's going to be the same thing they did in Venezuela. With what they call the petro. Same idea, right? And I don't believe that's going to be the end of these real cryptocurrencies. In fact, I think it might actually add fuel to make Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies actually go up higher than they already are, including gold and silver. So, you're not going to actually price your gold and silver in the end. And I'm not talking way distant into the future either. I'm just talking maybe a year or two down the line. You're not going to be pricing your gold and silver in U.S. dollars. You're going to be pricing it in the new U.S. cryptographic dollars, which will have good buying power once again. Probably pretty good buying power at any rate. And people will be able to store them on their telephones because everybody now has a phone. Except for these homeless people. I mean, what are they going to do? They're not even going to have a home or a telephone. They're going to be in a pretty bad mess because they can't even store the new cryptographic dollars to buy anything unless they got a telephone. I don't know. It's going to be a strange situation, but we're heading head first into this, so we got to start kind of looking ahead and trying to figure out how it's going to play out. And, of course, some of the things I've been telling you today may or may not come true. We'll have to wait and see, but it seems like this is the way the governments tend to operate. You know, when push comes to shove, they have to do a certain thing. I mean, do you really believe that the United States government is actually going to default on the debt? I really cannot ever see that happening. But I can see them going back and to a loosey goosey monetary policy easy enough. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye bye, guys.